Welcome to the Energizing America podcast, where we talk about all things energy and why we need oil and gas and energy in our business and communities and people. Excited to sit down with Adam Chesney, our current safety director at Wescom.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think we're
Appreciate
going to
the
have an
opportunity.
awesome conversation, Adam, about safety. And you and I, we can talk about safety for a long time, especially when we talk about our experience together at Wescom. But why don't you walk us through who Adam is and where you came from before you were at Wescom?
Yeah, so I've been in the safety and health industry for about 10 years now. I started off at a local utility company, and I was there for about 8 years and had some utility experience, gas, water, electric, kind of well-rounded, a lot of opportunities. And then I ended up coming to Wescom. I thought it was a perfect fit, and a big part of that was the leadership and the safety culture that was already established, but they kind of said, we got something established, but we want more. And we want somebody to help us get there, to help us build that culture.
Yeah, it's funny because when you came, I think you were a second safety director. Our first one was with us for maybe, I don't even know if it was quite a year, maybe 6 months before the job kind of was a bit too stressful for him. And so we had I don't even know if we can say a foundation, right? We had the excavation done to put the forms in, and you joined our team, and boy, what is it, 3 years, 2.5?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
2.5 years later, do you feel like we have a safety culture at Wescom?
Oh, absolutely. It's very strong. And I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I mean, when I came in, you say you just had a little bit in place. You did quite a bit. You took a lot of that on your plate as well. And you did safety videos and you're communicating to employees. And I thought that was pretty cool to see a leader of an organization stepping up and leading their team and making sure that you want them to go home unhurt.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a little bit, Adam, even in some of our meetings about this set, and I hope I don't overuse it, but when you have to go to a funeral for a guy, and especially at Wescom at that particular time back in 2014, we were maybe 20 people strong, and when you lose a team member in his young 30s, younger age, 34 maybe, and you go to his funeral and you're talking to his 5-year-old kid at the casket, it fundamentally switches something. And it's interesting because every time we talk with safety professionals, there's always like a safety moment in their life that kind of pivoted them to take a real serious stance in it. And for me, that's what it was, is that time, like, whoa, as a business owner, this is not about profit. This is about making sure everyone goes home, not just financially well, but also safely, right? Because
Absolutely.
These things go hand in hand. When you think about the culture and safety in the workplace, and just even in your little journey at Wescom, is that a difficult thing to try and incorporate, or is society like willing to listen about safety in today's world?
The society is willing to listen. Companies want culture, they want safety. Quite frankly, a lot of companies, it comes down to the human aspect. They don't want to see people get hurt. They don't want to have to visit somebody's family and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, your husband or your wife lost their life in the workplace today," and have to explain that to the wife, to the husband, to the kids. I mean, that's a very traumatic thing, as you've experienced before, and nobody wants to do it again. Unfortunately, it's happened too many times across this country that leaders of organizations and safety professionals have had to do that. They've had to go visit those families. They've had to go to the funerals. And it is a very pivotal point for an organization where they say, once was too much, it's enough. I don't want to do this again. We need to build a team of safety professionals to help us build a culture. We need to make sure that people are going home unhurt.
So when your leaders get to that point and they have to do it, my little journey on it was I didn't have a clue what to do, right? And so you're right. I was setting my phone up on my computer and taking a selfie video, talking about the latest safety topic that we were hearing about, and then I was posting it on our app. You came on board. We started a safety committee, possibly right before you came, but you really took that thing to the next level.
Yeah.
You engaged employees, but are there some secrets for folks out there that are looking to create a safety culture that you've seen that work?
I think a lot of safety people ask that question: is there a golden ticket? What can I do? Give me one thing I can do to just create culture and to do everything. And there is no one way to do it. There is no answer. In my experience, through the different organizations I've worked with and tried to help, I think there's a couple main things that help. And I think part of that is visibility, availability, and following through, or showing them that you care. So visibility, you're you're being seen, whether you're a safety person, you're a CEO, you're a manager, you're a supervisor, you're out with your employees, you're engaging with them. Hey, how's your day going? How's the work going? Do you have the tools and equipment you need to succeed, to get the job done safely? So you kind of have that visibility aspect, but then the caring aspect or the follow-up is if somebody says, no, I'm working out here, it's cold, we got these thin little gloves, my hands are frozen, I can't get stuff done because I have to keep warming them up. Hey, let's get you some better gloves. Let's get you some warmer gloves or whatever it might be, better glasses, or glasses are fogging up. Let's get some glasses that don't fog up. So it's getting out there, being visible, taking care of their needs, and then following through, addressing it. And I think that goes a long way with employees.
It's interesting, both sides, the visibility and then the follow through, because I think that's where, as an organization goes, it can be really easy to be visible, or it can be really easy to be the follow through. It's really hard to do both,
Yep.
right? To see an issue and then actually go tangibly solve it. And I think, we've even had this challenge at Wescom that somebody tells us, hey, here's an issue. So then we start going and exploring it. And you know me, I'm a tightwad.
Yeah.
And our leadership team is sensitive to financials and, how is that going to be paid for by the client, or how is this going to get passed through? The follow through becomes a big challenge. Are there times where you've had to stand your ground on that follow through with people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always a challenge. Every organization has a budget. Safety doesn't always have to be expensive either. There's simple solutions out there, simple fixes that aren't super expensive. But I'd also say that it's not just an expense, it's an investment. You're investing in the employees, you're investing in their success. They're going home unhurt, but also getting the job done so the company can make money.
Right. And so I think that's a piece that a lot of business owners don't realize. In your first year at Wescom, we were a member of the North Dakota Safety Council, right? The NDSC, yep. Which we love those folks. They're doing amazing things. We sponsor their conference year after year. You went to, I think, every one since.
Oh, yeah.
And our safety professionals go. We usually grab one of the managers
It's
to go.
Great time.
Phenomenal information. Through that council, we found out about a 25% work comp credit.
Yep.
Provided that you follow a few items. I think 4 out of the 5 items that they wanted us to do, we already were doing. We just didn't tell them about it, right?
Yep.
Safety committee, safe driving video or class. I don't remember what they are. But regardless, 25% premium credit on our work comp policy. So our $100,000 policy, every May when it renews, we get a $25,000 credit depending on how much our policy is. But you use the word investment, right?
Yep.
There's a cost. But what about the return on that cost? And so often when we're talking about employees, it's easy, right? I can send Adam out, I can bill him out at X amount of dollars an hour. He costs me this much, so I have a margin. Well, it's not necessarily that way with safety. You can't quantify it that way. But since we've been doing that, we've seen some benefit.
In my career, you see benefit. I mean, you see people are happy, they're engaged, they're submitting observations, they're really in tune to safety, they're talking about it. But that's one of the biggest things I see is how do you quantify the return on the safety investment? It's the absolute hardest thing to do other than to be able to say people aren't getting hurt.
Well, what did you
People are speaking up. People are engaged. I mean, that's how you quantify it. It's hard to say, what do I get out of buying this? Well, you get somebody coming back tomorrow to come to work. They're happy. They're excited to get work done for you so the organization can succeed.
Right.
You really got to tie. I think that's the hardest thing with safety. A lot of people have a hard time tying together safety and operations. They truly go hand in hand. And a lot of times we found out at the shop too, how many times have we bought a piece of equipment to save somebody's back? Instead of lifting it and the employees speak up, they're engaged and they say, hey, I've been lifting this heavy thing. I'm sooner or later, I'm going to hurt my back. Something's going to happen. Can we get a piece of equipment? Well, we know back injury, I'll just make up a number. Back injury costs $10,000. A piece of equipment costs $1,000. There's your return on investment right there. You save one person's back by buying that piece of equipment. There's your return. That's huge.
And I think so much of what business has, there's long-term investments that, like you said, they're hard to quantify, but there's points where you can look back and quantify it,
Absolutely.
Right? We can look back and see a discount on our work comp through the North Dakota. They're a monopolistic state, so you have to buy it through that state. Well, we just got done with our budget, and we have several divisions, and each division has a different percentage of work comp, right? And that is the one thing that for the last 3 years, every time we touch our budget file, we are consistently dropping our work comp rate. And I'll tell you, that goes hand in hand with payroll. So as our business grows, if our work comp percentage cost per dollar paid goes down, we're just adding margin, right? And that's
Absolutely.
helping offset our safety costs, if
Yep.
you will. So you can use those metrics, but they're long metrics. So it's hard to make that daily decision when you're in my office and
Yep.
you're saying, "Hey, Shane, I just saw an observation for somebody bringing a pellet through the panel shop and they hit a crack in the floor and they hurt their back. So hey, how about this? Let's go spend $1,000, fill in the cracks, blah 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 blah, make it easier, right?"
Yep.
Well, at first you're like, at the same time I might have just hung up on somebody who needed a $10,000
Yeah.
tool, right? So you're like, whoa, too much. But I think it's important for businesses to stop sometimes and look back and see that success that has built. And you
Absolutely.
use the word invest. It's interesting because even on your sweatshirt over there, you got Wescom wins.
Wescom wins. We invest nonstop in safety.
Yeah, and I think when we came up with that, wins, we love the word win, right? We love to win. But the fact is we needed that word invest in our safety model.
Yep.
Because that's truly what it is.
Yep. And we need to remind ourselves that it is an investment. It truly is an investment for the reasons that you just discussed.
Right?
And some. I mean, you think about too, how many projects have we gotten because of our culture, because of our safety record? Our employees are engaged, they're speaking up. Companies come in and audit us, and before we sign an MSA with them, and they say, "We want to see your JSAs. We want to see the quality. We submit us your observations. We want to see what your employees have to say. What are they submitting?" And how many times have companies said, "Hey, Wescom's the right fit for us. You guys got your stuff together. Your employees are engaged." I mean, an outsider looking in, seeing what we've accomplished throughout the years and going, "Yeah, this is the team we want working for us."
Well,
So it helps us get business too.
totally. And I often forget about that, right? Because once we get an MSA, it's become so, I don't want to say monotonous, but it's like the safety is so much of who we are that it's just like when they ask for, "Oh, I want to prove that you're a safe organization. Let
Yeah.
me see a JSA." It's just like so easy because, I don't know, grab one of 50 that were submitted yesterday and give it. I
Yeah.
don't know if we have 50 a day, but we get a fair amount, right?
Yep.
We just celebrated a fairly big milestone within our safety record.
We did.
How many hours?
Over 1 million man hours without a recordable injury.
That's pretty phenomenal.
That's
Adam.
huge. That's
think-
huge.
That's a nugget you can take with you no matter what you do in life and where you
Absolutely.
go. Because as a safety director at Wescom, to hit 1 million hours without a recordable,
Yep. Well, and I don't take that credit. That goes to the leadership. That goes to the employees who believe us. They trust us.
yeah,
They trust what we say. If we say, "Hey, that's not a safe way to do it, you're going to get hurt. Let's find a better way to do it." They're going, "Okay." They're not pushing back and going, "I don't want to, that's silly." No, they believe in it. They believe in us as a leadership team. And that kind of ties back to my original, being visible, being available, following through. I mean, the things we've done at Wescom to help build a solid foundation of a safety culture, I mean, we just keep doing it and we're seeing success with it.
we are.
In many
And
ways.
like you said, it goes down to the employees, right? I think the leadership team, you have to have buy-in, which is why it's important that you and I are in sync.
Yep.
Often, but it's the entire leadership team. But ultimately, if we don't have that buy-in from the employees,
They have to buy in. They have to believe in us.
yeah, the 1 million hours is an incredible number. But what's incredible to me about it, folks looking in on the oil and gas and the industrial market, I have worked in some crazy environments. I'm talking 30 below jackhammering a trench out in North Dakota to 108 degrees down in Carlsbad, New Mexico, pulling wire, or helping our guys do a mechanical project. Same thing up at the mine where we're working, right?
Yep.
In the pelletizer. Let's not kid ourselves. What did we buy the guys up there? Some cooling vests or
Oh
whatever
yeah,
to
some
wear?
cooling vests.
Because
They're
one of them
working
said
in-
this is getting
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's hot in here. It's crazy. We're sweating. We need to cool ourselves down. Well, let's get some cooling vests. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll invest in that.
So it's not like we're working in an industry that doesn't have hazards,
And
right?
I love how you bring that up. You got to celebrate the number, but you got to tell the story. You got to tell the conditions. What our employees are working in many very dangerous environments, like you're saying. I mean, you got the environmental hazards. You got overhead cranes. You got loads flying around. You got down in excavations. They're doing all kinds of stuff that, quite frankly, you could get hurt very easily.
And I think one of the things that really surprises me almost every week, I see at least one safety observation about somebody working. We do a lot of maintenance work at Wescom, right? And so it's not uncommon to go to a well pad that's an energized site in production. It's not uncommon to be up at the mine and working in an energized area, right? Or out in the mechanical arena of our business working on a piece of mechanical that actually has flow going through it.
Yep.
So when we have to do maintenance, we have this magical word called LOTO, right? Lockout, tagout.
Yeah.
And I am so impressed by our team's desire to do things right and do verification. Every week I'm seeing one of these.
They know the consequences of what happens if they don't properly lock and take out a piece of equipment, and most importantly, verify that there isn't an energy source that could hurt them. And yeah, they take it seriously. I actually had an employee come into my office this morning, and they were telling me they were working for a customer, and they went and opened up the panel, and there's bare conductors all over the place, and it was a very old facility and an old unit, and they just went, typically they'd handle it one way, but just being how old it was and the potential to drop a phase and have an arc flash, they were like, we're stopping, stop work authority. We're shutting this down. We're going to they were going to work on it hot. They were going to suit up and work on it hot. And it came to a point where they said, we're not comfortable with this. Let's de-energize it. Let's test it. Make sure there's no energy here. Let's lock it out. Let's just work on it dead.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing. Back to our conversation on culture. Empowerment. One of Wescom's core values is empowering employees. That ties into safety. We empower them to make the decision. If it's unsafe, stop work. Have a discussion with your team. What's the safest way to do it? And I think that's super cool. And I think that's a huge part of that. I think about the 1 million man hours too. I think that's a big part of that success is empowering employees that you're not going to get in trouble. Nobody's going to yell at you if you stop work. It's unsafe. Stop and talk to somebody about it. Call me, call Shane, call whoever, and we'll help you. If you don't know how to make it safe, we can help you. We'll be there. We'll drop what we're doing, and we will help you figure it out. But if you know what to do, just empower yourself to do it. Make that decision.
Have you ever been in a situation where somebody did something like stopped work authority or said, boy, I'm not comfortable with this safety or this hazard, and therefore I'm stopping or I'm calling? Have you ever been in a situation where they did get in trouble for that? And I know probably not at Wescom, but if there was a situation at Wescom, I hope you would have shared it. But anywhere in your safety career?
Definitely not at Wescom. In my career, I don't know. I think a lot of organizations are very supportive of it. The only way I'd see somebody getting mad about it is if the intent wasn't there.
That's a great word.
If they stopped work because they didn't want to work or they didn't want to, that's an employee issue. You got to handle that differently. But by all means, if there is a true safety concern and you stop work, in my career, I have not ran into any issues with people getting in trouble.
And I think it's important for folks to realize that, because as we've talked, even within Wescom, and I think I'm not saying Wescom's been successful because I don't know what that looks like, but with any going concern entity, any entity that's been in business and continues to grow and do cool things like Wescom is doing, you're going to have this weird, awesome dynamic of folks, right? We have some folks who are 18 that work for us. We have some that are 60 years old that work for us. Actually, my dad's 70 and he's still running around there, right? Causing problems. But and we got some folks that have immigrated from Mexico, especially down in Carlsbad, New Mexico area, that are solely speak Spanish. Some that are bilingual. We have some that are from Arizona, Alaska, Washington, Wisconsin. Those people are a real problem, from Marengo especially. You get all these people together and you got the most diverse, dynamic group of people ever, right? And for the 18-year-old who's just starting his career, he's like, yeah, right. Like, I'm going to go tell this 60-year-old that I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And if I do, what's going to happen? But somebody who's been in the industry, in the safety industry for how many years? 15?
10 years.
10 years? And you've never seen a single time where somebody got in trouble for speaking up.
No.
What have you seen when they speak up?
They're supported. Good job. The big thing, fill it out. We want to share this. We want to tell other people, we want to share this moment with people and show people how you stopped work, how you created safety, how you potentially prevented an incident from happening. And it's a very positive thing. And typically there's a lot of support from it. But I have to acknowledge too, when you talk about the employees coming from all over the country, Arizona, New Mexico, Hawaii, wherever, you got a lot of experience there. And they've all worked for companies. They have safety experience as well. They have stories they can bring in. They can teach. You talk about the younger guys and the older guys. We have a lot of good experience and mentors that can teach these younger guys the Wescom way and how Wescom values safety. And yeah, I think it's super cool seeing the diversity and hearing when I'm out and about with the guys, I'm always quizzing them about, well, you know, how did this company do that you work for, and how'd they do this, and how'd they treat you? And I love hearing the stories that they have from their experience. But that helps me because I can share those stories with other people. Hey, I went and talked to so-and-so. He told me that their company used to do it like this. That's the silliest thing. I've never heard of anybody doing it like that.
Yeah.
You know, this is how Wescom does it though.
You know what's interesting too, Adam? I think so often we talk about, well, we should be open and honest with each other in safety conversations and what have you. But there's something that has to happen before people are willing to be open and honest about safety. And you kind of touched on it a little bit when you said being visible and then showing the care. And you used a couple words that you're not arriving on location and saying, you know, hey, Bob, let me see your JSA. Oh, you forgot the hazard about, you know, there's some slips, trips, and falls because this site doesn't have good soil. Or, you know, you're working up at the mine and you forgot to acknowledge that you have some overhead hazards. You may say that. But when I've been on location with you, I've heard you ask people how they're doing, how's their family. And I feel like that's something that gets lost in the safety culture sometimes. Yep. Is that first you have to have that true care about the person.
Yep.
You can't arrive and care about their safety if you don't even know who you're dealing with and if you don't care about them as a human being.
Yep.
Do you feel like our team, that's part of when you look back at the progress we've had?
Absolutely. And I'd say there's a delicate balance, but I don't want to say delicate, but there is a balance of, by all means, you have to get those people engaged. You have to get to know them. You have to get to know they like hunting, they like fishing, they have a family, they have kids. That helps you have discussions with them when you do see issues. Hey, you're standing on the top rung of that ladder. I'd really hate to see you get hurt. You're supposed to go to your kid's softball game this weekend. Like if you're in the hospital, you're not going to be able to get there. So I think getting to know them shows them that you care. You truly care about them, but it helps you have what I call difficult conversations. It's not always easy, whether it's a safety professional or a leader or supervisor. A lot of times people struggle with safety conversations. How do you approach it? You don't always want to be the bad guy, but you got a job to do. You got to help people work safely. And if you see somebody who's at risk or doing something that could potentially be unsafe, you have to address it. So I think getting to know people helps. It makes that conversation easier. You could say, come on now, hey, don't be doing that. That's silly.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it makes it a lot easier to have that conversation with them.
One thing you mentioned earlier was the word intent too. And I think that's something that gets lost. And I know we've had a lot of conversation at safety committee level, management level, leadership level, that what was the intent? And if you have that common trust and bond within each other, no one's being a bad guy in safety.
Yeah, no.
The intent is to keep you safe so you can go home. When
you get to know somebody and you get to know their personality, absolutely, you know their intent. When they say, I'm sorry, I was talking earlier with some people, we're talking about production pressure. The oil and gas industry, you want to talk about production pressure? 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, getting phone calls. Hey, we need a crew on site. We got to get that unit up and running. We got barrels to produce. That's where it's important to have safety professionals out there saying, okay, guys, we got to get this done. We got to help the customer out. They need us, but we got to do it safely. We got to find that balance. We got to find that right pace where we can get this done for the customer, but we got to get it done so we can all go home unhurt.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. It's not always easy. It is not easy, let me tell you.
The production pressure you're saying.
Production pressure. And inherently, a lot of employees, they take pride in what they do and they take pride working for Wescom. So they put an element of pressure on themselves besides the production pressure coming from a customer. You know, they want to get it done. They want to get it done quickly. They want to impress their teammates. You know, they want to be successful. So it's kind of reminding them, just slow it down a little bit. You know, it's not a marathon. Let's just get it done.
We've had a lot of conversation at the safety committee level about that, you know, that, hey, that's great that you want to do that for the client. Is a client giving you pressure? And oftentimes when you've asked that, the employee is like, No, but
Yeah, we've seen the
I'm giving it
opposite.
myself.
Yeah, I said there's a lot of times there is production pressure on our employees, but we do work for a lot of companies that there isn't production pressure. They're not. They're like, just, get it done when you can. But the employees put that pressure on themselves as well.
So we've talked about the role that employees have and leadership has in developing a safe work culture. We work for several different, public corporations and some private corporations in the oil and gas and in the mining and shipping and railroad. Where's their responsibility in the safety conversation, and how do you feel like they do with it overall?
I think most companies deal with it pretty good. Their overall responsibility. I mean, anytime you bring a contractor on site, you're liable for their safety as well. How many different, every customer we go to work for, we got to do contractor safety orientations and make sure that we understand the rules and stuff for that specific site before employees go on there. But yeah, they have an obligation to keep anybody they bring on site safe as well. Wescom has to take care of their employees, but our customers have to take care of us as well. And if there are any hazards that they see, known hazards in the area we're going to be working, they should be pointing those out and walking through the job with us and saying, be careful of this. There's a confined space here. You're going to need a permit. Be careful. We got chemical storage over here. You don't want to get exposed to it. So yeah, absolutely. They have an obligation to take care of us when we're on site. So to help us get the job done safely for them.
Yeah. And it's interesting the different cultures that can develop between the different clients. So Wescom is lucky because I feel like we have one safety culture, right?
Yep.
The Wescom Wins is embedded within each person here. We spend a lot of time on it. We have monthly safety meetings, quarterly meetings. We talk about it at our annual meetings. They get rewarded for doing their observations. They can get gear based on it. The Wescom Wins culture is there, right?
Yep.
But then to take that culture now and go work for a company who claims to believe in safety, and their MSA requires you to go through with a fine-tooth comb and go on ISNet World, PC, Veriforce, Aveda, you name the subscription, go spend $5,000, prove to me that you have a safe working environment. And then our crew goes out there and all the safety gets thrown out the window. We have to still remember back to who we are, right?
Yep.
But I've seen awesome things happen when we find the right client who also embraces safety and looks at it as an investment. And those are the companies that, sure, our employees have done a great job. And I do believe that leadership believes greatly in safety.
Yep.
But ultimately, the end user, i.e. the client, pushing it has caused us to become who we are.
Oh, absolutely.
And our safety
They
culture,
push us to get better.
Yes.
Yep.
And those kind of clients are the ones we want to work for.
Absolutely.
It turns out that's who our employees want to work for.
Yep.
Right? They don't want to go work for the random Joe who is all about the dollar bill and forgets that there's a story behind that dollar bill.
Kind of puts them in an awkward situation. Like morally, they know what's right. I got to do this safely. But then you got somebody who's just kind of pushing something else. That goes back into production pressure and stuff too. And when you see that, typically culture kind of slides a little bit. So yeah, going into organizations where companies embrace it and support us and help us get better, I love that. That's awesome.
And especially when we can just have open conversation with them,
Yeah.
right? When you can go up to the local mine and sit down with the safety director and you guys are planning the shutdown together, and it's just like you know that you have the same intent. Or you go to a compressor station with a client, you have the same intent.
And that's one of the biggest is different in my career. One of the biggest differences working for a utility and then coming to the oil and gas industry. When I was at the utility, I participated in different events where myself and safety professionals from other utilities across the Midwest, I think there's like 12 different utilities. Once a year we get together and we lay out on the table, here's the accidents we've had, here's the injuries we've had, here's what we did to make the workplace safer going forward. What do you guys think? Have you guys had similar incidents? How would you guys handle this? And we worked as an industry, worked for different companies, but we worked as safety professionals trying to make the workplace safer across our industry. I don't see that in the oil and gas industry. Little bit, but it's still kind of you can share some stuff, but you don't want to share everything because you don't know how they're going to react. And so I'm hoping that the oil and gas industry kind of follows suit with the utility industry and that openness and embracing it and being able to have those conversations.
I'll tell you,
I've seen it a little bit with safety alerts, but it goes beyond safety alerts. It's getting together in groups and sitting down and as an industry, what are we seeing? What are the top hazards? How can we prevent them from happening?
I think one of the good things that happened from COVID and the slowdown in the oil and gas industry and the investment pressure many, especially on the public side, have received from banks not wanting to invest in oil and gas. They're forced to come up with an ESG policy, environmental safety governance, and I mean it's right in there. And they're being forced by their investors, frankly, to embrace the safety role. And we're starting to see in my short tenure of 8-9 years in the oil and gas industry, it's significantly different. The very first site I went to, no hard hat required, no gas monitor required, not even FR close required. All right. And would you not die if you went on a location and saw that?
Absolutely.
You'd have a hissy, like, hey, stop.
What's going on here?
And there'd be reports flying all over the place, So we've talked about the employees, we're talking about the client's role in this. How in the heck, because you can't look at a return on investment necessarily, but how do you measure your success or an organization's success in safety? How do you know that you're being successful in safety?
To me, you have partially the lagging indicators that people are going home unhurt. But for me, what I really dig into is just engagement. Are people talking about it? Are they filling out their JSAs? Not are they just filling them out, but are they doing a good job? Are they taking them seriously? Are they submitting safety observations? What is the quality of their observations? Those are the things that I really look at, not just quantity and the numbers, but what about the quality?
And I think
the conversations when I'm on site with them too. The more time you spend with somebody, the easier it is to have safety conversations. We already talked about that. You're out there, you're building relationships, you're getting to know them. It makes it easier each time, which in a sense makes the company safer and safer, because if you're not afraid to speak up to somebody, you're potentially preventing an incident or an injury from happening because you did speak up or you did stop work.
And the incredible thing that happens about opening that conversation about safety and people having a safe spot, no pun intended, to go bring that up through an observation report or whatever, and just starting that culture of openness. Those same people that get in the habit of bringing up safety issues are also the people that will bring up other things that you should know about your business.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of times people use safety creates processes to funnel information up. And a lot of times employees use the safety processes, the good catch cards, to just talk about operational things. Like they're like, I don't know another mechanism. I haven't seen my supervisor or my boss or whoever. I don't know how to bring this up. So I'm just going to put in a safety observation on it.
And it's always good stuff that we get from it. There's never been any ramifications. We'll take any feedback we can get.
And that's a big thing with the observations too. I mean, part of our culture, don't put people's names in it. If it's a positive, somebody does something, hey, so-and-so had their safety glasses on, so-and-so held the ladder for me. Yeah, put their name in it. But if they're not being safe, if standing at the top rung of the ladder, have a conversation with them, explain to them why it's important not to step on the top rung. You could fall, you're 12 feet up or 10 feet. But have that conversation, put the observation in. We don't need to know who, but tell us about the scenario so we know what's going on. And I think people love that. That helps big time to get people to submit observations. Nobody wants to get in trouble.
Well, do we want to get people in trouble?
They're trying to get work done. They're trying to help the company. They're trying to succeed. And sometimes in the busyness, you get your mind off the task. You don't think about, oh, geez, sorry, I didn't realize I was standing on the top rung. I was trying to reach this up here. And
I think it's huge that we always maintain, no matter what we do, behavioral-based programs, right? Yep. And it's factual. I don't care if you're dealing with humans or dogs. You got to have positive reinforcement of behaviors.
Absolutely.
So if you grab the negatives and start getting those folks in trouble, you're not going to have a successful safety program. And that's one area, specifically in the oil and gas industry, I think we need to do better on. Is
what do they call that? The bloody hand in the pocket.
Yeah.
If you start shaming them and blaming them and making them feel bad, they're just going to hide it from you. They're not going to report it. They're going to hide it. And that's not what you want.
And so tell me why we want to know about that top rung issue. What does it tell you when you see a report come through as an incident that, there was an observation, my coworker was on the top rung of the ladder, so I told him that was unsafe and to get down. Why do you care?
Oh, absolutely, I care. I mean, it allows us to know what's going on. We can pick out trends and have conversations with them. That's really what it's about. Start the conversation. We're starting to see more people standing on the top rung of the ladder. Let's do some promotional about it. Let's talk about it. Let's tell some stories about what's happened to people who stepped on the top rung of the ladder and they failed and they had an incident or an injury.
So I think that's it right there, right?
So it's education, it's empowerment, it's, this is what can happen, and this is why we don't it's not safe to do that. There's safer way. Get a taller ladder or
Do something different.
do something different.
The reporting that happens out in the field helps drive the trainings that we need and the education that we need to do as a company.
Yeah.
Right.
We've had that happen where, 1 month we have a topic picked out and this is what we're going to talk about, but all of a sudden there's a trend. We had a couple people have hand cuts because of the tool they were using. And we said, you know what, this trend is going on. Let's discuss it this month instead. We'll talk about the other one next month. This is here and now. We need to talk about this. And we did company wide. We did promotional around it. We did training on it. We did handouts on it. I haven't heard of that incident happening again. I haven't seen a report come across.
I think
because
you
of
might
it,
see
so-
one after this podcast because I think I saw one on the way down. The crazy thing though, Adam, is your nature and every safety director nature of wanting a nice, consistent laid out plan. Every fall, you give me a cool booklet that you print out that your safety department has worked on with your safety specialist and the safety committee. You got your whole year planned out. Right.
Yep.
But we have a flexible enough system that, I know we're on page 14 of the safety book. It's the month of July. We're supposed to be talking about these 4 topics.
Yeah, you got to be flexible.
Yep.
Whatever comes up, you have to address it. You have to train on it, talk about it, make sure people are aware of it.
When you think about we talked about the employees, the leadership, and the clients, but there's something that needs to happen to pull all that together. And we've talked about how safety is not up to the client. It's up to me, but as a company, it needs to be a group of people. So we have a safety committee.
Yep.
And some folks have wondered, we recently had Luis down in the Permian, top-notch guy, been with us for a long time. And he kind of got promoted. We don't like to say promotion around Wescom. He got moved into a different position where he's leading a team. And we had to remove him from the safety committee as a result of that. That was kind of funny down at the Christmas party when I announced who the new safety committee was for 2022. He's saying, he's translating for me, and everyone busts out laughing. So I'm like, Luis, what'd you just say? Oh, I got fired from the safety committee. I said, well, did you tell him why? Yeah. So why is it important? What should the makeup of that committee be and why?
Yeah, and the reason we've had that discussion a few times, because I think when I first started at Wescom, we had 5 or 6 people from the leadership team on it as well as employees, and we had that discussion of we didn't quite feel like employees were speaking up and bringing up the things they really needed to during the safety committee, and that's what the safety committee's for. Tell us what's going on. What are you guys seeing? You're our eyes and ears out in the field. We want to know what's going on so we can help you. And I think a lot of times when there are supervisors around or you have a leadership team in that room with them, they get reserved, they get quiet. They don't want to share what they're seeing. They're afraid, back to being afraid, or I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get somebody else in trouble. But you remove that leadership, make it about the employees, create a safe environment for them to bring up stuff. Man, we have one heck of a safety committee. The things we can talk about, the discussions we can have, anything's on the table. Open, honest, tell us what's going on. What are you seeing? And we get a lot of good information. We have a lot of good discussions, and we've made a ton of safety improvements. The safety committee's made a ton of safety improvements because of the atmosphere we've created during that meeting.
And so I attend the monthly safety committee meeting. I think the employees are really good about leaving names out of, they just talk about what they see, and it gives me a glimpse into it. But we don't allow managers on that committee, and we don't allow people from the leadership team. You, of course, as a safety director, are on there leading the meeting, and our safety specialists, field safety specialists, are on there, and then, of course, a couple people from each field. I think that's been a very important piece, that the employees have a voice. And then when they're out working, our teams are looking to them. They know that they have your ear.
Yep.
They know that if they tell Bob in North Dakota, who sits on the safety committee, it's going to go somewhere.
Yep. But I think the safety committee also helps create safety throughout Wescom. The last meeting we had an employee out in the Bakken. They were pulling some 4-aught wire, and it was super heavy, and they were afraid that somebody had hurt their back. So they created a way to rig the wiring to eliminate that person pulling it off the spool, and they said it was safer, and they got the job done quicker. Back to safety production, sometimes it can help. But number one, the empowerment, the creativity, I thought that was awesome. But more importantly, in the safety committee, we have people from around the company. So one thing I try to do in my career is, okay, great, you made your team safer. That's awesome. But where else around Wescom are we performing this task? That we can share this information, share how your team created this success, created safety in performing that task. And can we implement that somewhere else? You guys did a good job. You're saving your back from getting injured, but we want to save everybody else's as well. So I think that's a cool part of the safety committee too, is the Permian, the Bakken, Duluth. We can all share information.
Yeah.
How are we creating safety here? And a lot of times they're like, yeah, we should do that here. Yeah, that'd be really cool. We need to get that tool. We got to do this. So it creates excitement. They get excited to try new things and to hear what other people are doing.
And I think the other way that you've been really good at sharing that information beyond the safety committee is, since your time at Wescom, you developed a monthly safety summary where you're saying, yeah, great, people were not just submitting observations, but if we're just doing this to submit observations, that's not the point. Let's share the information.
And that came up through the safety committee. When we're pushing safety observations and we're like, why aren't people submitting them? They're like, well, they just go into a black hole. We don't see anything. Nothing happens with them. I said, perfect. Let's create a safety summary. I'll put some safety topics in there, but more importantly, I want to put your observations in there for all of us to read and to learn from. That way it's not just going into this black hole. Like you want us to submit these, but nothing's happening with them. No, we're going to submit them. We're going to share them. I mean, things do happen. We always do follow up on them. So that's never been an issue. But I think just highlighting it, making them available, and people being able to see what others are submitting, I think helps them submit like, oh, well, yeah, that happened to me the other day. Now I know I can submit an observation on that.
Well, and I think human beings are competitive by nature,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when we see that the Permian did 20, the Bakken's like, we better do 21.
I might have started a little competition the other
Did
day.
you? Okay,
I might
good.
have accidentally, when the Bakken submitted like 30 of them in 1 week. And I said, hey, good job, Bakken team. What's going on in Duluth and the Permian? You guys got to step it up a little bit.
and you got more. I
Yeah.
bet.
Oh, yeah. They're coming in.
That's perfect. Well, I think I'm a numbers guy, right? I love to use numbers to measure, not to necessarily say if we're successful, but to measure. And so in the last couple of monthly safety summaries, we had some conversation about we're like hitting a stagnant spot. And you were really cool about reminding me that, Shane, it's not the number, it's the quality. And that has really been fun to see our team get really serious and engaged about that. For the folks that have no idea what a safety director does, we've talked about this a little bit, that safety in of itself has, you're in a pickup and you're going to the job and you're saying, you should have done this, you should have done that. And then you're off and you're buying some potato chips and eating donuts and whatever. But what actually goes on behind the scenes? What else are you doing besides engaging employees and doing the safety committee stuff?
There is so much that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, between doing the master service agreements, trying to submit documents, contractor management databases, filling out in statistical reporting, written programs, getting ready for training, drug and alcohol testing, making sure whether it's the monthly randoms or it's new hires that you're getting them tested to make sure we have a clean and healthy workforce coming into work for us. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
I don't think people realize how much reporting through all the different agencies.
Lots of reporting.
You have monthly reports that you have to submit, right? Maybe not to agencies. You give monthly reports to ISNet World.
Yeah, all of our customers ask for it. They want mileage and they want injury rates and number of hours worked, and
all of that is done through. I've wondered sometimes, would it be easier if we could just email this information right over to the producer? But instead, we have to put it into like ISNet World or PEC Veriforce or Aveda, or are those the major three?
Browse,
Browse, yeah. So you've got all these websites that you're managing, right, with all this data in it, monthly, and then quarterly you got to do some additional work, right?
Do additional work,
which is OSHA statistical reporting,
and then annually after.
Annually, you have to do what, a OSHA log?
Yeah, the OSHA logs.
OSHA logs, which we have to post in areas, right?
Yep.
And then if there's ever an accident, forbid an accident on location, the phone call comes in and Shane and Adam or it doesn't even have to be an accident, right?
Yep.
It can be a catch, because I don't know that we've had so many accidents, but a situation that didn't go well on a location.
A near miss.
A near miss, right? And everyone handles those near misses differently, right? Some clients are like, hey, sweet, thanks for reporting. I got trust in you that you're taking care of it.
Yep.
Other clients are like, whoa, near miss, let's sit down. I'm not sure if you're going to work for us.
Yeah.
And that's always a bit incredible to me, because I think there's a segment of, again, kind of not to pick on the oil and gas industry, because we've made such good progress, but there remains a few people in the oil and gas industry who are doing the blame game and the fault game,
Yep,
right?
they are.
And looking for a reason to get rid of somebody
Absolutely.
rather than.
But I think part of that makes Wescom stronger too, because we learn who we don't want to be. We learn how we don't want our culture to be. We can learn from those companies and go, yeah, we don't ever want to be like that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm glad that our whole team agrees on that.
Yep.
You know, when we're with those kind of clients, it's like, oh, okay, so noted, not working for them anymore.
Yep.
And it's usually a pretty mutual party.
yeah.
So you got all this reporting you're doing. You're trying to fill out the master service agreements to show. You get involved in some safety site specific plans that we have to do. You're leading a weekly team meeting with your safety specialists.
Yep.
What in all of that, what makes you tick? Why are you doing it?
I do it to see people go home unhurt. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And one thing I've always said too, one of my career goals is to never have to make that call. Kind of how we started the conversation. I don't ever want to have to make that call. I don't ever want to have to go to that family's door and talk to the wife or the husband and the kids and explain what happened at work. I don't want to have to stand by a casket to somebody. So what drives me and what makes me tick is the one thing I don't want to ever have to do. And I will do what it takes to make sure that I don't have to experience that.
That's awesome. What is the one thing that you wish people would understand about safety and the safety specialist role? Like, is it that they'd understand that you're there to help, or is it that they would just embrace it personally? Is there anything that you wish they would understand?
Yeah, I thought about that. I want people to embrace it. I want them to understand it. It doesn't always have to be difficult. But once again, that goes back to culture and the organization you work for and how do they make their processes. But
That
you
it
know,
doesn't.
it can be fun. You know, a lot of people think, oh, it's just safety. It's boring. It's like, no, you can have some fun. You can light some FR on fire and, you know, educate people and do some cool experiments or drop a piece of rebar on a hard hat and see what happens, how it protects their head, or, you know, so you can make it fun and get people engaged with it.
And I think a sign of that passion that you have with safety is, you know, we talked about the 18-year-old versus a 60-year-old and the experience and the mentorship. And, you know, sometimes the folks who've been around for a long time, they've seen a ton. And I've experienced this in my career progression, that your confidence starts to get stripped from you. And maybe it's a good thing, right? Because some of us, myself, are born with too much confidence and we need to be stripped of it. 20 years later, you're wishing you could have not gotten stripped of all of it. But when you're 18 and you have all this confidence that, you know, the world's in front of you, you're never going to fall off a ladder, you're never going to get hurt, you know, then you got the 60-year-old guy telling you, yeah, you actually are. And there's this push and pull that can come. I think we've found ourselves at Wescom several times talking about this, right? Yep. You know, Bob's mad at Bill and rah, 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 you know, and at the end of it, we always go back to, okay, what's our intent? And every time we go back to the intent, we win.
Absolutely.
Every time we remind, well, wait, Bob, why is Bill telling you that? It's because he wants you're his 18-year-old apprentice,
Yeah.
and you happen to be the best apprentice there is. Bill is looking to keep you for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
So he's trying to bring you along. And hey, Bill, why is Bob mad at you? Because he wants to get the work done, because he's excited.
Yep.
Maybe as we go through life, sometimes we lose our excitement, and he's trying to get your excitement back. Embrace that, and let's do this together. And there have been people at Wescom, especially since you've been on our team, that were the 18-year-old kid who are now the 21-year-old young adult, who are the ones that are actually embracing safety, and they're on our safety committee.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think that's awesome to see. It's been an awesome experience to be a part of that and to see these individuals grow with themselves, to grow with the company, to grow and embrace safety and the culture that Wescom has.
I think it's incredible too. And you're a humble individual, and you don't take enough credit for your role in that. And no matter where life brings each of us, and it doesn't matter at Wescom or wherever, I think the big takeaway for me, who was young when I started Wescom and got involved in this thing and didn't understand safety and looked at a lot of things from a cost perspective, 9 years later, why did it take me, 5-6 years before we had a safety department?
Yeah.
That should have been number one. I think if I would have realized the impact that they can have, and it's so much deeper than safety. The conversations I hear you having with the employees and the amount of buy-in you can get from them because genuinely you care. And you said it. The reason why you're doing it is so that you don't have to have that difficult phone call.
Yep.
It's not so that you can get some false honor because you had 1 million hours, right? And I don't even know if we have celebrated that necessarily at Wescom.
We haven't. And I'm honestly, I don't know if it's something we've recognized it and we've shared it with people, but I'm not big on celebrating that. Every day's a new day. If you get stuck on celebrating that number, and it is a milestone that should be recognized. We recognized it, but every day is a new day. Every day, like we talked about, they're dealing with excavations, they're dealing with cold, they're dealing with working at heights, they're dealing with working on live energized systems. The potential exists every day, so you don't want to get people too excited to where they forget about the current moment, what they're working on. Like they're still at risk, and they still got to stay focused. They still got to follow the procedures, the rules, to make sure that they go home unhurt.
Well, and I think it's also important, Adam, like we talked throughout the podcast, we can't use these random metrics to say if we're successful or not, right? This is an ongoing journey we're on.
It's an ongoing journey.
And every time we hit a little milestone, it's like, well, that was cool.
Yep.
Anyways, next milestone.
Yep.
And when folks someday get to retire from Wescom or from their career, and they get to go travel, they get to go hunt and fish because they have all 10 fingers and toes, and we were a small part of supporting that.
That's a cool milestone.
That's a milestone we'll celebrate.
That is one to celebrate. Absolutely.
I would have never imagined that this amount of time could go so quickly when we talk about safety. And again, it goes back to my inexperience with it. Well, now I know because we try and squeeze a safety committee meeting in, and I think the next one we're going to probably have to have 2-3 hours because there's so much conversation going on in those meetings. But I think there's a lot more to talk about with safety. But I appreciate your time, Adam, and we'll have to.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Shane.
Take care.